Okay. So we got two of you here. Cool. Um.
Dallin was here a minute ago.
Oh, he was.
I thought I saw his name on the active now list over there. Maybe I was looking at something else, but it had him and Sarah and me in there. I don't know.
Okay. I'll
Anyway,
I'll text his mom real quick and see if they're gonna jump on. Um. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to show you was so how to do some basic like movement stuff in Unity. So let me share my screen here. Share screen. All right. So do you see it? You're able to see my screen?
what does it look like?
Right now it just looks like Unity.
So no, I don't see that. How do I click into that?
Click on the Game Workshop video channel, and then it should, like, if you double click on that or something, then it should pop up and say somebody's streaming.
Oh, I'm out of it again. It's messing me up. So I'm just going to get off. I'm not going to be able to talk. So I'll have to just type in messages or something if I need you or call you or something. I'll get off of this one.
Okay. All right. Sarah, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, I can see your screen too.
Okay. So this is a script that I started. Um, that all it has right now. So serialized field, you don't have to necessarily do that. Um, this just makes it accessible in other places. So we could just say this is a public float move speed, like that's what I'm calling this float is move speed, right? And at the end of a float, you put an F. So this is just a 10. So 10 units of whatever we're doing. And this could be a float, so it's a decimal number too. So it could be 10.0 F, whatever. So I have this one variable, which is the speed, and then just ignore the green stuff. So if you wanted to ever comment out a line on your script, you can always do this, do two slashes, and then it will um, turn it green, and then that makes it so the code doesn't read that line.
Oh,
And if you want to comment out like a big section, like I just did this whole section, you can do control slash, and it'll turn on or off the slash for that whole section. And then one other way to comment things out is you can do a slash and then an asterisk, and then at the end of what you want to comment out, you do like an asterisk and then another slash. See, and then it just comments out everything in between those asterisks. So now I
why
have
would you want to comment things out?
just so like for example, say right now I don't want this part of the function to work because I just want to show you this part. So I'm just going to comment out this. But also,
It's not even working right now.
what?
So when you comment it out, it's not only can you not read it, it's just not doing anything.
Well, you can read it. It just turns it all green, but then the script isn't reading it. So the script just ignores this.
Okay.
So then you can also put comments around your scripts. So say I want to call, like, you can do it at the end of a line too. You could just, like, out here, do two of those and go. This is calling a function that will rotate my object, right? So you can put comments around in your script like this so that you can explain what's going on, and that way later you can go back in and figure out what happened. So like if you want to take notes in your own scripts, you can do that with this comment thing.
Okay.
And then the script will just ignore that. So anyway, I changed my update to a fixed update. If you don't remember what that is, that just means that it's going to happen like exactly the same amount on everybody's computer. So if my computer was 3 times as fast as yours, then whatever, I don't know what the fixed update frame rate is in Unity, but it makes it the same for everyone. Where update, if you just had plain update, then it's dependent on how fast your computer is. So if you have a really fast computer, then things will happen really fast. So
Okay.
so fixed update just makes it so we know it's going to be consistent everywhere. Like if you post your game online or something, then fixed update will make sure that everybody has the same experience. So I'm just calling one function. I created a function from fixed update called rotate object that I made up this name, and then made it down here. So private void rotate object, and so something you can do in Unity in C# is when you're using a mono behavior, part of mono behavior is it can detect what the script is on. So right now I put this script on this cube, and every object in Unity has a transform value. See, like over here I have my cube selected, and in the inspector you can see I have position and rotation and scale for that object. So in C# you can actually just say, you can say this dot transform dot rotate or whatever, but you could also just say transform dot rotate, and it knows that you're talking about whatever the object is that the script is on. So I'm just going to say in my script, my whole function is going to say transform dot rotate, and rotate has a capital R, and then you put in 3 values, the X, Y, and the Z value. So I'm just going to try to make my object spin around the Y-axis, which is the one that's pointing up and down.
Okay.
So I'm just going to try to make it spin. And then if we want that to also be adjustable based on our variables, like make it so we can change the speed, we could just say, instead of putting a number here, we could just say move speed, right? So move speed is this number. So right now it's going to move 10 units, whatever that is. So if I just save this now, file, save, and go back to Unity, let it update. So right now move speed is set to 10. So let's see what happens if I push play. So
Oh,
it's just spinning. Okay, so if I change this to a 0, right, and I put move speed here, or just put a number, let's just put 5 for Z, and let's see what that does. So I'm going to save it. I'm just showing you this so you can see like what's actually happening. So Z is rotating that way, right? So if we wanted it to rotate the other way, then we put a negative there. So you can also do like negative move speed if you wanted to, and it's going to spin the opposite of move speed. So now it's going to be negative 10. Okay, so I save that. Now it's going to spin the other way really fast. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So you can do that with rotations. You can also do that with translate. So we could say transform dot translate. So maybe here I'm going to copy this line and just say translate. So transform dot translate, and that looks like it has a capital T as well. So I'm just going to put all the rotations to 0 for now, so we can see what happens if I just have it. So rotations aren't going to move because they're all set to 0, and now we're going to move in Z, whichever direction that is in on the translate. So file, save. So if you look at this object, Z is the blue line, right? So it's going to move up. Y is green and X is red. That's what it is in like every 3D software. So X is red, green is Y, and blue is Z. So if I hit play, it should just start moving in the Z direction. Oh, and it happened really fast. So let's say let's just divide this by 10 or something. So you can do math here. You can put math anywhere pretty much in your code.
why did -10 make it faster?
Negative 10 will make it move in the opposite direction.
But the same speed?
Like if we divide it by negative 10?
Well, earlier on the transform rotate, you first did 10 and then did, well, you did move speed and then you did negative move speed.
Yeah, so if we do put a negative in either one of these, it's going to make this number a negative number. So that means X, Y, Z. So Z is going to be a negative number here. So watch, let's save this. Hit play. Oh, it happens way too fast, so we couldn't even see it. But anyway, so that's how you access the position and the rotation of your object and get it to move. So I'm gonna comment this out now. Oops. Blah. Okay, so now there's this other function called move. So I'm going to call a move function, which is this. Okay, so it's just private void move, and move is just a word I made up. You can call this whatever you want. So this is an example of a variable that I might call inside of a function. Okay, I'm calling just a random variable, and it doesn't have a type necessarily. I'm just saying I'm making a word that I want to use, and it's a variable, var, and the word that I'm going to use is delta x, or I could just say position X or whatever. Position X. And then we can get the, another thing I need to explain before we get into horizontal is you can say, I think I did this a little bit last time where I got into inputs. Like this is keyboard inputs. You can say input dot get key down, for example, and then put in a key. So let me find one of these other move scripts I've done. Not that one. All right. I guess all these I've been using horizontal and vertical. So what horizontal and vertical is referring to is in Unity you have some things that are already set. So it knows what horizontal and vertical are, and there's already keyboard buttons that are connected to those. So instead of saying input.get key down left arrow and right arrow, it just knows left arrow and right arrow are part of going left and right. So if I go to project settings, input manager, then here you can see the different things we could use that are already set, and you can change them. So here, if we use the word horizontal in the get access, did you see that in the script? So input dot get here, input dot get access, that is referring to this menu in Unity, which is project settings, input manager, which you might not even have to look at this. I'm just explaining this so you know where it's coming from, okay? But if we type in horizontal, then what that's doing is it's looking for, so the negative button is left and the positive button is right arrow on your keyboard. And we can also use the A button and the D button for the same thing, to be left and right. So for vertical, if we could use the word vertical, and right now vertical is set to be the negative vertical is going to go down as the down button, and positive vertical is going to be the up button, or the S and the W. And these other numbers just deal with physics a little bit. So the fire one is going to be left control. So one of these is, like, you could change this so that fire one is the space bar, for example. So if we want to shoot, then we just say, instead of pushing the control button, I want to push space. And we just want to make sure that that's how it's spelled in Unity. So we could go to the website and say, let's see, Unity
I doubt they would this late.
keyboard
But
key codes.
yeah, because especially since tomorrow is a.
So here is the list of all of the different keyboard things we can use. Okay, so we could use left arrow, joystick buttons.
Yeah. With a fight.
So if we go to, where's the space? I just lost it.
And then it's an hour later of, wait, but I thought we were going to watch a movie.
Where did it even go?
Yeah. And then he ends up staying.
Oh, down. It's under
right
escape.
there. Yeah, space. I'm going to click on that. So keycode.space would be how to access that. But so space is the word. So we could also use this in our code. So instead of saying all of this, let's just comment that out for a second.
episodes feel like they're
I could say like if
That's what.
and do
That's what I just said.
input dot
Oh, I'm trying to
get key down
because Spencer's on his call.
and do key code dot space.
She's jumping.
So if
No, she's jumping.
the key code is space, then right here,
No.
I guess I do need all this.
Nope.
Um,
I went to put her down.
right, do I have 3 opening ones? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Key code dot space, just make sure that's the same as this.
When did you get up?
And it is.
4:30?
Then we could put our
She is
our-
so tired. Huh.
logic in there.
Okay.
So the logic would be
She's just jumping and happy. So
transform dot
yeah, you are.
rotate
Kind
or
of
whatever.
in and out. But
So if we push that key, then it's
no,
going
I'll
to
leave
rotate
She's,
or whatever.
she's,
So we're not going to do that right now. We're going to use the
she'll just fight it.
we're going to use this horizontal thing. So it's get axis. So
Yeah.
okay. So I'm creating a new variable called position
Well, it comes
x.
and goes,
I'm doing
I don't know what it is
input dot
for. I feel like
get
they're last
axis
summer,
and
then
using the
it's
horizontal
really
axis. And with these axis things, you can multiply that by a number. So to change the speed. So I'm gonna you can multiply it by time dot delta time. This is another way to make it so it's consistent on everybody's computer. So if this was just update, it would still work. It's still going to look for move on every frame, but now it's going to, the object is going to move based on real time. Time dot delta time, if you type that in, that just means it's based on like actual time from the clock on your computer and not on the
Okay, sounds good.
amount of
Yeah, a
frames that
little
have passed in Unity.
I do.
That's a little bit confusing, but time dot delta time is a way to just make it so you know that it's going to move the same speed based on someone else's computer. So we
And do
don't.
you need the
So we don't.
asterisk in between?
Yeah, that just means multiply it by this,
You, what's that?
and then I'm multiplying it also by the move speed that I set up here. So since I'm doing it in fixed update, this time dot delta time is kind of redundant. I just wanted to put this here to show you what that was. So if we were just doing this in update, we would want time dot delta time here. But I'm using fixed update, which is going to be the same on everybody's computer anyway. So I don't actually need this.
Well, actually, Kayleen was on her
Um, So I'm just going to do, if I push the horizontal button, which is left and right on the keyboard, then it's going to move horizontally based on the move speed that I set up here.
Oh.
So then I have to use this variable. So this this variable is actually storing this value. So the value is going to be going between, I think, -1 and 1 when you do this axis, when you do the axis thing. So when I'm pushing the button, it's going to gradually go up to 1 until I let go, and then it's going to go back down to 0. And if I push the left arrow, then it's going to go down to -1 and then go back up to 0. So
You are Kaden. I was talking to her saying.
we need to create a new
I was like, Caden's trying to go.
position.
She's like, oh, well, they should come. She's like, I'm bringing all my patties, so we'll have
So I changed this delta x to position x. So on every frame, right, this is going to call this function, which is going to do all these things. So the first thing it's going to do is see if we get the keyboard button, and then come up with a number.
Well, actually,
And then it's going to create another variable,
so tired.
which is going to say
She should be tired.
the
She's wide awake right
the
now.
position,
She stays
and we're going to get the transform dot position x of our object, and then we're going to add whatever this number was. So we could even, like, if we wanted to add our own keyboard stuff and not use the horizontal, right, we could say get keyboard or get key code down, space bar or left arrow, and then not use this, but just say when we, like, if we get the keyboard down, then we're just gonna add something to the position X. Does that make sense? So all we're doing is the transform.position.x is a number in Unity that's already on the object, right? Position.x is this number.
Okay.
So all we're trying to do is figure out a way to add something. A squawky Sophie. Add value to this number so that it moves either up or down, so that it goes left or right. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna say whatever this number is, we're gonna add something. So we could say plus 1, like you could do that. But I'm just going to do this for now. And then it's going to update the position to be transform.position. The actual position of my object is now going to be my new X position. I'm going to just keep the Y position the same, so I'm just going to say the transform.position.y is just going to equal transform.position.y. So I don't
And
have to...
that's the position your object is starting in when the game starts? Okay.
Yeah, so transform.position, if you say transform.position.x, y, or z, at that moment it's going to get that number. So transform.position.y right now is 1.48. So I'm just saying I want it to stay at that position, whatever it is, here. And then I did the same thing to make a variable, but do vertical up and down for the z position. So for now, I'll copy this and just say z is going to stay the same, or whatever. So we're just going to show you the horizontal part. So if I save it, the rotation stuff shouldn't go crazy because I turned all those off. But now if I'm hitting my up and down arrow keys and it's not doing anything, well, and I'm hitting my left and right and it's going very fast. So maybe we do need the time.delta time. So let's see what happens if I do that. So I'm gonna do time.delta time and just see what happens if I put that in here. There. So it did help. But I think it still would have worked if I just made my number smaller. So if I got rid of that, I'm going to save it. And come over here and just change this number to like 0.1 or something. You know, it's still moving at a consistent speed, but with the time.delta time, then it sets it based on some number that has to do with the clock. So Okay, so then to do our vertical thing, it's the same thing except for instead of moving it in X, we're going to move it back and forth in Z. So it's the same exact thing, except we use the vertical word. And then, yeah, other than that, it's exactly the same. So just uncomment those out. So these are 4 variables that I could make another function and use those same things if I wanted to, because these are all the scope, like we were talking about earlier. These variables here only exist inside this move function. So if I had another function, I could use position X again if I wanted to, and it wouldn't mess with this function at all. But move speed, like if in my function I changed move speed, instead of just using it as a number, if I said like move speed equals something, then like maybe after every time this happens, then you say move speed equals move speed plus 1. That would mean that it's going to always add 1 to move speed. Then it would actually change it here outside of the function. It would change it to 11f. So right now we got the horizontal and the vertical. So those are two different things going on. And then it's going to say the actual position of my object, transform.position, is a new vector 3. And a vector 3 is a 3-part location, like a position, I guess. So you have an X, a Y, and a Z, right? So you could do a vector 2, and it would only have 2, the X and the Z. It wouldn't go up and down. And then that would be the whole thing. But for 3D stuff, since we're working in a 3D space here, I'm going to use vector 3. So anyway, if we save this now, well, I'm going to change this back. My move speed is down to 1. So look, I have my play button pushed, and if I don't know if we talked about this yet, but since the game is running right now, if I change this speed over here to 10 and then click back in my game, then now it's moving faster. Oh, and my up and down isn't working, so I need to go figure out what's going on there. But if I hit the play button again, then this reset to the small number as it was before I hit play. So everything that you change, or almost everything that you change over here in the inspector, when the game is running, is going to reset back to whatever it was before it was running. So anyway, so just keep that in mind. So we're just going to set it back to 10. And we got to go figure out what's going on with our horizontal. Oh, remember I changed it so the transform position Z is just the default transform position Z. So I need to change this back to the new position variable. So now it should be this value, which is saying it's the value of the actual position plus whatever the number is that we're getting from this. So should say save that. Okay, so now I should be able to do up and down. Yep. Alright, so now we have some movement moving around. And we could even, just for fun, I'm gonna not have this translate thing in there, but just have the rotations. And we'll just say this is 5. So I'm just gonna turn my rotations on. So while I'm moving around, then my object is gonna be rotating. So rotating, but I can still move. So you could also change it so, like, we could do whatever we want. So say we wanted to rotate it and then always move in Z, for example. Like if we hit the up arrow, we want to move forward. Instead of doing .z, we could say .forward, and it will get the forward position or whatever. So there's like different ways we can move around, but this one, like using the horizontal and vertical words, already have things set up in Unity, so they make it so you don't have to actually write a ton more lines of code. Because we could do this same thing. We could program all of this ourselves by doing that thing I was doing before, where I said if I get this, like we could do a whole function for just the left arrow, and then a whole function for just the right arrow, but this does both of those arrows at the same time, so that's nice. But so that's what I wanted to cover for today. So if you guys have questions now, then let's go ahead and talk about those, or if you want to try to get this on your end and see if you run into any errors.
Okay.
So
where you put transform.position.x plus position x, why did you have it plus position x?
because position x was the name of this variable. So that was kind of confusing. I'll just call this back to delta x, just so that it's something different than position, because this is just a random word that I made up. Position x wasn't a real thing. I was just changing the name just so you could see that it doesn't matter what this is called. This is just a variable that I'm making. So you could just call this Bumblebee, and Bumblebee is the number that we're getting when we're hitting the button, and then it's adding moves or multiplying it by move speed. So then it's storing that whole number into this delta x thing. So then I'm saying my new position, which is just another word, is going to be position x, which is, right now it's negative 4.1. It's going to be negative 4.1 plus whatever this number was. So, but it's still not changing my actual position. So then down here, I'm saying my position equals, and then giving it a new number. Does that make sense? So up here, we're not actually changing the number yet. We have to actually say transform.position equals, and then tell it what number we want it to put here. So before we're using this number in our math, but we're not actually assigning this a new number yet. Until this line. So these two things are just like random number. We could just call this number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, or something. And these are just float numbers, because these are all going to end up being floats. So we could even say this is a float. and it'll still work because these are just coming up with float numbers. Var or var, or however you say this, is just a lazy way of making variables. So it's good to define them. So let me just so I'm 100% sure this works, I'm gonna save this and make sure that it still works. Yeah. Because I am using float variables on all those lines. So we could say float. And then each, inside of a vector 3, each of the things that we put in here for x, y, and z need to be a float value.
Wait, vector 3 just meant the XYZ positioning grid?
What?
What does vector 3 mean again?
Vector 3 is just a it's like a three coordinate system. So I could say like my fake position equals a new vector 3, and then just say 0, 0, 0. So I would have to put this inside of a function, but let's put it inside here. So now I could use the word my fake position somewhere else and say like transform.rotate my fake. Well, if I did this first, right? It's just going to be, what it is it's just a it's parentheses with 3 numbers in it, an x, y, and a z coordinate. So I could do this. I believe I can do this. We'll see if this works. But say my fake position now. Put that in here. And it should it should still give us these same numbers. I'm not sure why this is. Generate variable my fake position. So I need to declare the variable before I assign it. So maybe we have to say instead of float here, I'm creating a vector 3 called my fake position, and it's going to be a new vector 3 with these coordinates. And then I could use this word now anywhere I want, and it'll have all 3 of those numbers. So if I save this, it should still, so I did it up here in the rotate thing, so it should still be rotating the same way as before. Let's see if it works. Yeah. And let's see what happens if I say negative my fake position. What that should do is make all these numbers negative. So it's going to be negative 0, negative 5, and negative 0. And now it's rotating the other way. So, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it did.
It did? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
putting it out right now. Okay, I'm trying to remember why we have things organized the way we do. So you have rotation and then move under, or rotate OBJ, and then move underneath. And that's just saying those are the names of functions. And then underneath,
Yeah,
private void,
so this
rotate
one,
OBJ.
every frame, it's going to call this function. And also on every frame is going to call this function. So it's going to do like, it's like pushing a button, right? We're pushing a button, so it's going to do everything inside this function every time that this fixed update cycles through again. So if we did this on start, then it would only happen at the beginning of the game, right? And you can call these functions whatever you want, because they're not those main functions like start or update. So, yeah. So let me, if you guys don't have a lot of questions at the moment, let me see if I can come up with the long version so you understand what this all is doing. So I could, so if you guys want to keep working on this, then I'll work on getting one keyboard thing to do something. So if I, which maybe would work for the jump or something, you know. So I could say, I'm going to create a new function called jump and do a private void jump. Okay, let me say if input dot get key down key code space. Is that gonna work?
I think it's $20 a year to upgrade to.
Key code space. Let me just look.
What's the difference between transform.rotate and transform.translate again?
Transform.translate is going to move it like on one of these axes. Okay, look. So if I take this, translate does the position like this, and rotate spins it.
Oh, okay.
And you can also do transform.rotation, but what that does is it sets it, so if you said transform.rotation equals 0, 0, 0, it's just going to set it to that exact rotation. So it's not going to keep it moving. It's just going to say it's this and stop there. If that makes sense. So usually you just use the rotate one, unless you have a good reason to make it set to like an exact rotation, I guess.
You mean you usually just use rotate instead of translate?
No, instead of, there's two different rotates. There's transform.rotate and transform.rotation. So rotate gives it a value that's going to keep on rotating. Like, I want it to rotate 5 degrees at a time. That's what transform.rotate does. But if you say transform.rotation 5, then it's going to be set to 5 degrees and not move. So like, it's going to say transform.rotation. That wasn't rotation. Transform.rotation would just be like, set it to 5 or 50, and then it'll just be stuck there. But if we say transform.rotate, then it's at 50, then it's going to just keep on moving 50 degrees at a time. So the difference of what they look like is this: transform.rotate, and have 3 values in here, or transform.rotation, and then we can. So they look exactly the same, except like that. But we could also do like transform.rotation.y equals 0, if we wanted to. And then it'll make it so it's not going to rotate y at all. It's just saying rotation y is set to 0. Where here, if we set this to 0, that's saying we don't want it to move. So if we give this a number, then it can move. I don't know. It's complicated. But just use rotate for now. I was just trying to explain that, but I wasn't very good. So I'm trying to. I feel like this is wrong because I'm getting this. Is it get key code? No. Key code. Okay, if transform dot translate, and we'll say 5. Transform dot position equals no, I'm just gonna try this and see what happens. If I hit the space bar now, if that'll move it, let's see what happens. Okay. So what that did is it moved it exactly 5 units. So what I want to do is actually give it a force so that it falls back down. So I think what I would need to do to get because I want it, instead of just like moving, I want it to actually like jump. So what I'm gonna do is create a rigid body. So I'm gonna say
what's it called? Downton Abbey.
Public rigid body, and this is a thing we can put. Let me call it my RB for my rigid body. So on our cube, I can create a rigid body component, which is like a physics component. Alright, so now I have a rigid body on my cube. So now in my script, I could say my rigid body. So let's do a So this will just be bonus for if you guys want to figure this out, but void start, I need that function back in here, and I'm gonna get the rigid body from my object. So my RB equals get component. Oops. Which is set up like that. And then we put in rigid body here. So it's going to get the rigid body for my object. So I have a public rigid body. I'm getting the component from my object. And then when I hit the space bar, I'm going to do my RB, which is the rigid body, dot add force, and then it's another vector 3. So I can say, I'm going to say it's going to move in x 0, it's going to move in y 5, and it's going to move in z 0. Let's see if that works. So I'm using the space bar, and it should just add force to the rigid body component. So now in my cube, right now I don't have, it says none right here because I don't have anything in my rigid body field. So I'm gonna, wow, drag this cube over, and since the cube has a rigid body on it, then it detected it, so it's put it in that field. I'm gonna hit play. If I hit space, no, it didn't work. So maybe I need a bigger number, or did I?
What time is it?
Add force. Oh, is this gonna do something? Force mode. Let me just check and see if this does what I'm thinking. So maybe you can add a mode to this. Save. There. Well, it works like every third time that I push it, but it's jumping. Oh. And it fell off. Because now rigid body has gravity. So if you add a rigid body component, then it has gravity. So I'm going to make my ground a little bigger. Anyway, so if you guys can get that working on your end, just the, not necessarily the jump, but this movement part, then next time we can start creating some little objects around with triggers and things that do different things in our game. So, last minute check, but does anybody have, I guess Mom left, so Sarah, do you have any questions?
I'm just trying to make the script right now. So I don't necessarily have any on the top of my head, I don't think. I do keep getting, every time I've opened this, the last few classes, it said that Unity has a newer version that I should install. Should I install that? Or should I not install?
No, let's just skip that. I get that too, but it's because we downloaded the newest stable version, if you followed my instructions at the beginning. And they keep on creating updates and things, but we want to wait until they make a few updates for the newest version before we download that one, so that it doesn't have as many bugs in it.
Okay.
So, do you need to still see this screen, or how close are you on this? If I comment out.
So I took a screenshot earlier of the script because we were switching around, so I was trying to look at it. But it's different now from what you have on your script, and it won't let me type like float underneath. And previously you had,
var.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that all 4 of these say float, probably. It won't let you type float there.
Well, it has like squiggly lines if I do.
That just means you probably aren't using it anywhere yet. Like if I create a variable and I don't use it, then it puts squiggly lines under it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. It just means that it could just mean that you're not using it. Like if I create right now a public float dinosaur, oh, never mind, let me do it there. But if I do it, if I put one in here, does it look like that?
It wasn't yellow. I think it was just red. But it worked this time. It's currently okay. So I don't know.
So right here it says, like, it gives me a squiggle, but then if I say dinosaur, and put it in another part of my function, then it gets rid of the squiggly, because now I'm using it. So it's like, oh, okay, you meant to make that variable, you know?
Okay. Well, I took another screenshot so you don't have to like stay on and keep it up or anything.
Okay. And I'll jump off, and I don't think I uploaded the last week's one on YouTube, so I'll put them both up in case you guys want to look at that. But,
Okay, thank you.
okay, you're welcome. See you later.
Bye. Happy birthday tomorrow.
Bye. Thanks.